What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and either build them or fix them if they don't quite meet our standards. Now, this past week was Christmas, and I hope that you all had an absolutely wonderful time. We've got the new year coming up this week, and so I hope you guys are looking forward to that as well. Our goal was to reach 500 subscribers by the end of this year. It's still possible, but we've got a little ways to go. So please help us out. Share the video, share the channel with your friends, and of course, if you haven't already, leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. We're very close, but as you can see, most people who watch this channel are actually not subscribed. So please go ahead, just click that button. It's super easy, takes half a second, and you'll definitely be happy that you've done it. So the College of Swords Bard is the first of two subclasses of Bard that kind of takes a martial approach to the spellcaster here. So obviously we know that bards are super powerful as is, mainly for their spell casting prowess. But this, and one that we will talk about here in a couple of weeks, kind of serves to show you how you can possibly go in there and actually be a frontliner and use swords with your spells, which is pretty cool. I think that this is a really interesting take on what a bard can be, and so you can sing as you slash, and it's a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and see what this kit gets. So at 3rd level, we actually get 3 different features, which is a great start. To start out, we get bonus proficiencies. We get medium armor proficiency, and we also get the scimitar. I don't know why it's just scimitars and it's not all martial weapons. That would have made way more sense, or just, I don't know. That seems a little weird to me. But you can also use your weapon as a spellcasting focus, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's really weird that you only get scimitars, because there are a lot of other weapons out there that I would have preferred, or that we were already proficient with over the scimitar. And so I think this is really nice for the medium armor proficiency, like for sure. The medium armor proficiency is really nice on a bard. We don't have to multi-class over to Hexblade, for instance, in order to get it. The problem though is the scimitar thing doesn't really add anything, because you're better off just taking a rapier anyway. So that's kind of it doesn't really make any difference at all there. So this is going to be a 7 out of 10. It's nice to get the armor. However, it is a 1 level dip into Hexblade in order to get this as well. So, you know, like it's not that bad. It definitely helps, but the scimitar doesn't really make a difference. At 3rd level, we also get to pick a fighting style, which is very cool. Getting to use fighting styles is one of the main features of your martial classes. Things like fighters, things like rangers, things like that. They love their fighting styles, and they give a lot of really cool benefits. The only issue with the bard is that you only get access to 2 of them, and it is the dueling and the 2-weapon fighting ones, and so this basically allows you to choose, do you want a weapon in one hand, or do you want one weapon in each hand, and then you get some benefits for whichever way you want to do that. So you do have flexibility as far as how you want to arm yourself, but you could also have had, say, defense. Defense is really nice, being able to bump your AC. You have medium armor, and so bumping it even more, definitely something that's welcome. Protector would have been really cool to pick up. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them that are really nice, and especially once we talk about the other 3rd level feature, it would have been really nice to be able to take a Battlemaster maneuver along with this, because it's kind of along in the same vein, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. So I would love to rank this higher, but like there's not a ton of options here that are super relevant for me. It kind of backs you into a corner as far as what you can do, and there could have been way better options here, or at least more diverse options at the very least. So I'm gonna have to give this a 7 out of 10 as well. It's helpful, but it's not like game changing, because we are missing out on some that could be really nice. Finally, at 3rd level, we also get Blade Flourish, and these are very similar maneuvers to the Battlemaster maneuvers, but they are special to the College of Swords Bard. You can use these once per turn, which is really cool, and these also help your speed to go higher as well. You can also increase your walking speed by 10 feet, which is pretty useful. I think that's awesome, but there are 3 different flourishes. You can choose one of them per turn, and so let's take a look at what each of them do. The first one is going to be the defensive flourish, and so you'll use one of your bardic inspirations to deal a little bit of extra damage to the target you hit, and of course it is equal to the number you roll, and it also is added to your AC, which is pretty cool. The slashing flourish is really interesting. You use your bardic inspiration and it does extra damage equal to what you roll on that die, and the weapon also does damage to another creature that's within 5 feet of it. So pretty cool. You get a little bit of splash damage with that. And finally, the mobile flourish. So again, you use your bardic inspiration and do extra damage, and you can then push the target up to 5 feet away from you, which is pretty cool, plus a number of feet equal to what you roll on the die. You then can use your reaction to walk up to it and possibly be up in its face. Again, this is a little bit situational, but the shoving can be useful. So it's pretty cool. So let's take a look at these flourishes. Let's talk about each of them individually. So defensive flourish is definitely our standout here, right? So with each of them, you're dealing extra damage equal to the bardic inspiration, but you also get to add this to your AC. You have medium armor, and you're adding this number to your AC, which is going to eventually go up to a D12. Adding a D12 to your AC can be kind of insane. It's pretty awesome, and it's until the start of your next turn. So, you know, the entire round after that, you could have a potentially incredibly high AC, and that's amazing. It's definitely something to help you. You've got to get used to keeping track of your AC being different all the time based on what you roll, but it's really cool, really worth it. The slashing flourish, you're hardly ever going to use it, because how often are enemies going to be bunched up like this, and how useful is one roll of bardic inspiration going to do as a splash damage? Not that much. So I'm not really partial to this one. I'm not really a fan. And then the mobile flourish is situational. This could be useful to push somebody off of a cliff. This could be useful to shove somebody into, say, a spike growth, things of that nature. But just pushing them and then running up to them and going and doing it again, it's not as useful. It definitely has its place, but it's not as applicable as something like the defensive flourish. So to me, basically the slashing flourish I'm never going to use. The mobile flourish I'm barely ever going to use. And I'm basically going to always be using the defensive flourish, which is cool. The defensive flourish is really nice. But there are so many other things that we could be doing here, and it expends your bardic inspiration. It's not that you roll a die equal to it, you expend it. So that's a little tough too, because you know, you can potentially then use up 2 uses in one turn. You attack, and then you give bardic inspiration to somebody else. You've used up 2 of them. And, you know, depending on what your charisma mod is, you've used up almost half of them in one turn. That's kind of rough. That's a little rough for sure. And this feature doesn't really get fixed until level 14, well beyond when people play. So it's tough. It gives a lot of good, but there's also some bad in here too. So I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. I'm kind of splitting the difference here between good and bad. It's definitely not useless, but the cost is a little high. The cost is a little high, especially at 3rd level, where we still are on a long rest for bardic inspiration. We don't have our short rest just yet, so it's a little tough at this moment. So unfortunately, I can't really rank it much higher. At 6th level, we get extra attack. No need to go into detail on what that does. 2 attacks in one turn, always a 10 out of 10. And finally, at 14th level, we get Master's Flourish. This is a very simple feature, but it's very useful. So what it is, when you use your flourishes, you can roll a d6 instead of expending your bardic inspiration. Few things. First of all, this doesn't come online until level 14. That's very late. And it also makes you choose, do I want to use a d6, which is pretty low, and not expend my bardic inspiration, or do I want to expend my bardic inspiration and do a ton more, right? With this flourish, you're essentially getting hex damage on every single time you hit, or at least once per turn when you hit. So that's really cool as far as this goes. But you're missing out on what could be a D10, a D12, those higher die, but you have to expend those. So it's kind of a catch-22 here. It's rough. It's rough. I don't think that it's amazing, but it definitely helps patch up one of the biggest weaknesses of the Blade Flourish. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's bad. It's just, it comes online really late, and it really makes you have to choose what you want to do, and that decision can be really difficult sometimes. So overall, what do we think of the College of Swords Bard? College of Swords, it kind of disappointed me, to be honest. I really wished that the features here would come into a more cohesive kit. Now, keep in mind, you're still a bard. So no matter what I rank this, you're still a bard. You're still going to be very powerful, even if the subclass isn't as powerful as others. So just keep that in mind. It's totally fine if you want to play this. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. I don't think that there are enough options here in order to make me want to choose this over some other options, especially things like the Lore Bard. I definitely would choose the Lore Bard every time over the College of Swords. It also is one of those things where the Bard is the spellcaster. And so when you get into these Gish type characters, a lot of them aren't super optimized for both things, and so they end up being mediocre at hand-to-hand and magic. Bards are still fantastic at magic, but the hand-to-hand, it becomes a distraction at times to where you feel like you have to use your swords because that's your whole thing. But you're like, man, I'd just be better off casting this spell. So to me, I think that you're better off choosing something that's more based on your spell casting, but that's just me. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of my ranking. Later this week, we will be fixing the College of Swords Bard. It's been a little while since we've done a fixing video, but yeah, it's just a little too weak for me. I don't think that there are enough options here in order to make it worth your while, and so we are going to make a fix together. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. That will be on Friday. Until then, I hope you guys have an amazing week leading up to the new year. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss when all of my new videos come up. And until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.